live right here on a few different pages today. A lot of you guys tuned in last week or followed up and watched the video later with magician Eric Jones. And as you know, we gave away a few things. One of them is his famous biobender utility for magicians. You guys know what that is. It's basically where you can bend a metal object seemingly effortless right in front of the spectator's eyes and they never detect it. So then you can do all sorts of really cool things with it. And on top of that, Eric has was generous enough to give away three actually, three of his lecture notes. So to keep everything fair, I am a magician, so I can do all kinds of cool, sneaky stuff here with my hands. So I'm actually going to do the drawing right here live for you guys right now to find out who's going to win. So just to build the suspense, I think what I'm going to do is do the lecture notes first, and then we'll do the biobender last. So here we go. Let's just kind of reach in. Now, this is everybody who did the 3 steps. They liked Eric's page. They commented on the video interview that we did. And then, of course, follow here at Spellbound. So let's check this out. The first person who wins lecture notes is Liz Wickbrock. Now, she is local here in Sioux Falls. So I will get those to her. I don't think she's a magician, but I think she's got kids, and I think they're going to absolutely love some of the material in those lecture notes. Now let's see here. The next lecture notes goes to Brian Engelman. Now I do know he is actually a magician, so he's probably looking forward to those. And the third and final lecture notes goes to John McFryer. So that's going to be kind of a fun thing for him because I know he's a card guy. And so learning how to do some coin stuff, I think, is going to be a good challenge for him. And I'm excited to see him grow a little bit with those. So now let's get into the biobender. Here we go. This is the big one. This is the physical prize, which I will take care of the shipping and send that out from my shop first thing tomorrow, or as soon as you reply to me with your contact info. This is going to Brandon Aronson. Brandon Aronson won the biobender tool. So awesome. I will save your guys' info. I'll reach out to you guys here later this afternoon or tomorrow and let you guys know that you're winners. I'll tag you in posts, all these good things. So congratulations there to the winners. Now, I will tell you, I think we might have some prizes today too for you guys, a chance to win. So this is going great. I see I have quite a few people coming into this feed. So if you're just now chiming in, you may or may not have won. Who knows? You'll have to go back and watch this or just wait for me to tag you in it. Now, today's guest, or guests, I should say, is from the Dark Cabaret. Now, I've been plugging them and promoting them and bragging about them and their show that I got to go to firsthand, and by far the most mentally submersive show I've ever been to. They really know how to suck you in and draw you into the experience. So I want to show you guys a promo video, kind of a teaser right now of what they do. Let me pull that up. I'm going to share my screen with you right here. Share the audio. Now, this here is their video. Let's get the audio up here just a little bit. All right, so that should give you kind of an idea of what kind of magic these guys do. So I don't think we want to watch Back to the Future. So I'm going to get rid of that real quick, and I'll close this down. So without further ado, I'm going to bring them into the broadcast right now. We'll get to have a conversation with those guys. We've already got comments coming in, but we will address those as they come in. So here we go. Let's bring these guys in. We have Joey and Joseph. Hey, how are we doing, guys? Welcome to the stream here. Thank you guys for spending a little bit of time with me this evening.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so I think this is going to be a lot of fun. Now, 100%, I can't explain enough how much I loved your guys' show strictly because of the performance of it. Admittedly, I want to start with the promo video there because we just watched that. The thing I love most about your guys' promo video, seeing your show, the show I see, it might have been modified a little bit from your normal show, the one that I seen. It is a really cool promo video, and the fact that you don't know what you're gonna go see. You don't know if it's a magic show, if there's some real stuff going on, whatever. It kind of creates that whole illusion of suspense and wonder, and you're going into it with just a feeling. And I think that in itself is pretty amazing. So however you guys want to tear apart this video or talk about like the reasoning for it, I mean, let's get into that because that was awesome.
Yeah. The video itself, we wanted it to be fairly abstract when we shot it. We, especially in our market, we knew that question marks raised interest for us. So that was our goal with putting the video together. And that was actually shot in the venue that we generally perform at, our home venue. It's in Columbia, South Carolina. And it actually, one of our cast members, Christian Thee, is in that video. He wasn't able to join us tonight, but it's exciting that we get to see him and kind of get the ethereal feel that we have set up kind of going forward with that. So when we send it out, people are like, what is this? And so we're like, if you have those many questions, why don't you buy a ticket and you can come see for yourself?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it definitely drew my attention knowing that you guys were going to be at that convention when I looked you guys up, because I was like, I don't know anything of what's going on, and I'm excited. Me personally, I like the parlor show idea, the feel of it. It's much more intimate, and I think you guys have definitely capitalized on that so well. I wish I could do the exact same show, but I'm not.
But you have the notes, so that's going to help you out.
I do have the notes, and I am excited to talk about those a little bit later, the things that you offer, because I don't want to give away anything right now. You'll see those in a little bit, but the book that's green, I don't want to give away the title or anything yet, because I don't want people to go away from it. That right there, you could start a religion on that.
Well, it's been our closer for the last few years, and it's never failed us. In fact, sometimes it's worked a little too well.
Yeah. And you know, it was funny when you and I had actually met the first time at that convention. We had kind of talked a little bit, and it blew me apart how close our performance was of a similar effect or similar routine using the same method. But you had expanded on that a little bit because one version uses fire. And if I was not allowed to use fire in a venue, I just didn't do that routine. And you have opened up a whole new world of opportunity with creating an alternative method or presentation, I should say, that I can do it anywhere now, and it's great. I absolutely love it. So
I'm glad it worked out. That was one of the hardest things, because when you conceive something and you want to do it just that way, and then suddenly you get to the venue and there's a fire marshal, or there are certain restrictions. Most hotels, the Magic Castle, the Chicago Magic Lounge, the House of Cards, all of them have restrictions in terms of what you can perform, or if you can perform anything that utilizes so much as a match. And
right.
It's something you have to be conscious of when you're touring. Fortunately, within our own venue, we just let fly with almost anything.
Sure, that's about where I'm at with this. Like, I haven't been able to do a show yet just because of the whole COVID thing, but I'm like, you know what? I think people will enjoy it enough where they won't really tell on me. So we're going to try it and see where it goes. And if they want a good show, then they got to kind of stay quiet. But yeah, we're just here to have fun anyway. So let's talk about that promo video here. Let me pull that back up for you guys. And whatever pieces here that you guys want to talk about, I'll actually play it without the audio.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I can pause it and do whatever here in different spots.
Go to the if you can go to the last sequence where it's you'll see the cup that goes up in flames.
Oh yeah, let's tell them what actually happened there.
With the cup.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is another one of my effects where in this case it was a goblet full of matches spontaneously combusts, and That's great. And we set the lighting very carefully, and Brad, our cameraman, just painstakingly worked to get this perfectly set up. And I didn't know he was recording audio. And there's a couple of tidbits. Joey pointed out, I didn't notice this myself till today. Joey, what did you notice in the background?
So if you look very closely, and it's probably before it like ignites, Joseph is a habitual diet soda drinker. So if you look at the back table, that's one of Joseph's side tables. His can of, I think it's Diet Mountain Dew, is sitting on the table. In this shot, but it was too good not to get rid of, and so we added it in. But it was interesting because this shot, we get more questions about that dollhouse than anything else, because it was in our promo, if you follow us on Instagram or Facebook, this was in our early, like, first few years. We're on year 8 or 9 now.
Yeah.
And this was in the early iterations of our show, and it was a highlight for a very long time. But as we'll talk later, this is something that it was almost too good, and we could never get it to the level that we wanted it to, that we had to strip it from the show. Will it make an appearance later on? Maybe, but it's something we're working on. So
plans are in the works. Yeah. The other funny thing, and this is really probably the only thing that I have to comment on, is when this footage was shot, they had audio, and when that flame went up, it was just perfect. The lighting was ideal, and in the most southern accent imaginable, I went, "Please tell me you got that." And so the crackling of the flame is something we had to add in post-production, because I totally blew the audio on that.
Yeah. And another hidden thing that is you can faintly see it directly center is actually, this was in the show as well. What it is you're looking at a Ferris wheel that is spinning, and on this piece of art, the doors would open. That used to be in the show. But that piece is by our other performance partner, Christian Thie, who painted that. And that was actually on Reading Rainbow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yep.
It was a piece he designed specifically for that show, and they did the big reveal, because not only do the doors open, and not only is it a remarkable piece of trompe l'oeil, but it actually has moving, the Ferris wheel appears to move. It's a very clever illusion he's created. It doesn't physically move, but because of internal lighting and fiber optics, it appears that the theme park that you're seeing out the window is actually functioning. And Christian, I should point out, is a Broadway scenic designer. So if you ever get to collaborate with someone that makes you look good, you cannot do any better than a Broadway scenic designer.
Absolutely. I think that kind of goes into a little bit of the idea of just stagecraft, that, a lot of people out there don't spend enough time on it. I mean, the ambiance and the feeling and everything that you're doing, I mean, that's 90% of your show, in my opinion.
It's certainly vital to create the mood that we want, and our evening has a tour. It has sort of an intermission with dessert. It has multiple performers, and it's a progressive thing that moves from place to place, secret corridors in the venue and what have you, and it's about a 2.5 hour, 3 hour evening, so we're all physically exhausted by the end of it.
Sure. Yeah. So that's really cool. So kind of walk us through an evening of what it is to be at your show. Like what's the venue, and then kind of like the plan for the evening, a little bit in detail.
Yeah. So we generate all of our sales generally for our area at the time, because I'm now in New York, but we reach out generally through social media, and then some of the local press, and generate sales from there. They're given an address for the evening, and they arrive at the address, and we get a lot of questions. They're like, wait, is this a house? Yes, it is. And when you come down, you'll only see a couple of our signs, and sometimes there'll be torches, just depending on how late in the evening it is. And they will enter this like tree covered driveway.
Okay.
They pull up, and you walk in, and generally we are also the house staff. Like, we're running drinks, we're doing the show, we do everything from top to bottom, from marketing, the whole thing. So cool. They'll meet me generally. If it's not me, sometimes we have other performers that have joined us. The wonderful Tiffany Allen. We've had some belly dancers and other magicians that have joined us. We have sometimes a rotating cast, and they'll join us right at the front. So we introduce our guests. They get a feel for the evening, and then they get into a warm-up session. Essentially, we've had for a while, we had a palm reader named Curtis Smoke who would join us. And then from there, that's kind of like their introduction into the weird for the evening. And then after everybody's kind of settled in, our guest list is filled, then we start the tour. Joseph, take it from there.
I'm sorry, I'm not used to the whole live chat thing, so I'm taking.
Yeah, I see. I saw my aunt's on there. Hi, Aunt.
We've got Christopher Cook from right here in our area, but it's delightful to see so many friends chime in. Thank you guys for attending, and guys and gals.
We're getting quite a few comments here on this page too, which I can show some of them here as we get a little bit closer. But yeah, let's finish out the evening
house tour.
Walkthrough. Yeah.
Yeah,
there's no way to encapsulate it because there's so much to see. Christian's his lakeside retreat. It's called Morgan's Cove, and it is just the most phenomenal thing. And after you're introduced to his art, and we go a few places in the house overlooks a lake, and there are these two gigantic trees that frame the outside, and we have mercury argon laser projectors that do these green points of light inside the canopy of the trees, and it looks like fireflies. Okay. And it's just the most gorgeous thing. But the funny part is this is absolutely an outdoor moment of an otherwise indoor evening. And we've had so many people ask, did he paint this? And we're standing outside beside a lake, and by this point, their faith in him is so absolute that they're convinced he could have.
Yeah, that's very cool.
And the spirit of illusion and not quite knowing what is reality sort of permeates not only the house and the performers, but the performance itself, because we pointedly did not advertise this as a magic show, because we've attracted very, very artistically driven people that would normally attend the ballet and the opera, and they placed a great deal of faith, at least initially, in just Christian's say-so that this is going to be something special, because no one knew who we were. And then after the first year, it was really flattering. We were invited to everything. It was kind of like the Dark Cabaret was everywhere.
That's awesome.
The evening progresses through different rooms of the house, and there are different stories that go with it. And there's always music playing in the background from concealed sources that Christian brilliantly designed, and he and his partner Bruce Barr built into the house. And we're so privileged to be there, but unfortunately we can't uproot and take it with us everywhere we go, because we'd love to have it in New York, we'd love to have it in Charleston, but we're performing all over. I think we met you out in Iowa, didn't we?
Right? In Des Moines, Iowa, at the Abercorn Dabra convention. Yeah,
Steve Daly. I love it.
Steve Daly. We have a lot of people who met you guys at that convention here.
Yeah, and those that are going to be available this Saturday, they are doing Abracadabra.
No matter how you say it, it's a mouthful.
Exactly. And so we are excited. They reached out to the dealers because we were supposed to be there this year. We're actually going to have a dealer spot during the convention. So make sure to watch the convention and check out our commercial that's going to air during the 1 hour magic convention that's free for everybody on Saturday.
Yeah, and I'm excited for it. I was fortunate enough, only 100 people are in the Zoom convention, but it's still being broadcast for everybody to watch. And I was a little confused on that to begin with, hoping I was going to get in, thinking it was only limited to 100 viewers. But fortunately, I've seen now that those 100 people are locked in. It's been mentioned that it's going to still be broadcast, which is great.
And knowing Steve and Michaela, it's going to be amazing. And I see that Scott Klinger's on here, and he's a part of it this year, which is fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, he just did a little bit of a lecture not too long ago on the Omaha Club group.
That's really fantastic.
So that's really cool. One, I think it's important to have kind of your own venue set up so you can do shows like this. I had a residency here at a couple different places, and the most recent one was at like a higher end wine bar. And I love the environment. I love the ambiance. It kind of kept that higher class audience there, so I could do the more sophisticated magic that people would actually stop and listen to. But it still didn't feel like the show I wanted because I had to pack up, set it up, tear it down, go home. And that was one of my motivations for putting a theater here, that like I can do it the exact way that I want. I can set the tones, I can set the moods. And, like I said, you guys have given me a lot of information, insight, and a lot to digest on that topic. So,
being able to have our own venue, not a lot of people can say that, especially for performers, to have one stable place where you can leave your props and you have an active place to rehearse, to practice, and then go back to invite people essentially into your space, and you get to influence what happens throughout the entire evening. And it isn't subjected to just a stage.
Right.
For us, it's a fully immersive experience from the time that you walk up the path to the door and then take it through the rest of the evening. We have repeat customers that come every year because, they've seen the show multiple times. And of course we have to change things up, but the core of the show is still a lot the same. And they love the fully immersive experience. But a lot of that we generated a lot of that buzz because we were so involved in the arts community in our respective area. Like, we went out, we shook the hands, we went to the gallery openings. We wanted to know who the people that were involved in the arts community were. And then those people that supported us to get us the patrons that would, come out and help build our show and build what we have just worked so hard for these past 9 years.
Yeah, and I think that's really smart. I mean, there's a lot of magicians out there. And at one time I could say that was me, who think like, nope, you don't know, I'm a magician. You don't understand magic. You don't understand what I'm trying to do. But I mean, you got to pull from so many resources. Like, there are people that can provide so much information that are way more knowledgeable than you are.
Yeah.
And when you start using other people's ideas and stuff, I mean, that's when you really create the magic. Setting that tone is amazing.
Yeah, one of the people that we immediately reached out to when we first started the show, because for us, especially in that community, we were so fringe. We were very on the outside of traditional art. So we knew that we needed to get in contact and develop a working friendship with other people in the area that were doing some of the things. And one of the people that we met, her name is Natalie Brown. She's now in Colorado, I believe, and she's a belly dancer. And she had started what is called Alternacirc. And I literally watched this start as a 5-person circus, and she was a refugee from Louisiana during Joseph, Katrina?
It was Katrina.
Okay. And so she had family and ended up in South Carolina and had started a 5-person circus. Essentially, it was her belly dancing. She had a guy doing fire, somebody juggling, and then somebody balancing swords. And so I literally watched her grow her circus in Columbia, South Carolina, of all places. And she developed a following, all of this stuff. And I was like, that's somebody we need to know. And when we got in there, I introduced ourselves and we immediately hit it off. We all kind of thought on the same type of wavelength, and it just kind of springboarded for there. She was in our show for a very, very long time, and we had so much fun having her be a part. And now she's building a circus out in Colorado right now.
The Phantom Circus.
Cool.
The Phantom Circus, yeah.
Phantom Circus. Okay, so that's one for me to look up. Everybody watching, take note, check that out. Yeah, that's kind of one of the things that I had always wanted to do because I'm a huge fan of, the early ages of like the Houdini and all that stuff. I think every magician has a little bit of passion to kind of follow in Houdini's footsteps a little bit. But the idea of creating a variety vaudevillian type show, I mean, that is kind of my dream, and that's what I'd love to do. But finding those people that you can trust to put on that show that you are expecting or wanting in your entire performance, entire evening, that takes a lot of trust. And for you guys to do that and to find that person, admittedly, there's a huge amount of luck there to stumble upon somebody like that.
Oh, yeah.
And so to be able to...
I'll tell you something. We were so new and so green, even though this show concept had been around for a very long time by the time we got it up and running. It was the artistic fringe of Columbia that they had to trust us. They had to, just on the basis of our word, having not even seen the show, that we knew what we were talking about, and they embraced us, and we in turn embraced them. And I think it cross-pollinated in terms of what we all did. And since Natalie has gone on to Denver, she's worked with several magicians, including Piff the Magic Dragon, for instance.
Very cool.
So, yep. Yeah, and if it wasn't for her and Mark Plessinger, who had us out at different arts events, he would book us for different things. I performed for them a few times at his gallery. They had a review show, and it was our way of saying, thank you for allowing us to be a part of this arts community. And then it just became cyclical. Anytime we needed them, they were there for us, and then back and forth. Any way that we could support it, and being a vital part of like a strong arts community is viable for any artist. Like, period.
Yeah. And that's really good to hear. I'm involved with a couple other arts organizations, nonprofits and stuff here in town. And for me personally, seeing talent come through, this organization that I would never expect to be local has blown me away. So I have no idea, who else is out there performing that you just don't know about. And to join those groups, I think it's definitely critical. Somebody asked a question here that I think is relevant now because it's about your show. Let's see here. Kathy said, "What is the capacity of the venue?"
Hey, Kathy.
I'm assuming you know who Kathy is, maybe.
Kathy is one of our dear friends from the East Coast Spirit Session, which is a convention we've been participating in since its inception. What are we on? Year 6 now? About to be year 6, I think. Yeah. And she has been super supportive. Kathy, the venue that we operate in Columbia, it seats 35 people a night. And given the fact we're a parlor show, that's optimum. We've worked on ways that we can upscale the show, which we have done from time to time. Ironically, some of the technologies we were exploring has now played into this performance framework, being able to do things on a virtual level. And it's not our chosen way of approaching it, but it gives us the opportunity to sort of keep our oar in the water. But
very cool.
Great question, Kathy. Thank you for attending.
And, I had that question to myself, actually, because I can seat about 25 people in mine. And I've always questioned, like, is that enough? Is that enough people to play off of? All these different things. But I think, again, it goes back to creating that intimate moment. You're not there to get the huge roaring applause. You're there to make something memorable. And when you can do that, you're almost playing one-on-one with your audience. And at least that's the way it feels for them.
You get to really kind of like have a personal moment, more so like we've done shows. We had a sold out run in Charleston, South Carolina at an art gallery for a couple seasons. And that audience, it was 100 to 120, I think.
Right.
Yeah. And it was fun. Don't get me wrong. And we loved having that many people to just kind of feed off of, because, as an entertainer, being on stage and you got a lively audience and they're giving back to you, you just kind of build on that and move forward. But you don't get the personalized, like, I know that person's name, like, we're going to have an interaction tonight that you have with like a smaller venue like ours, which is, it's still exciting, but there's a give and take for me personally. Joseph, I can't speak for you, but I know that, like, at the end of the night at our venue show, I know everybody's name, I know the experience that they've had, and I know who's going to go away like really talking about the show.
Yeah, and that's really cool. I mean, I think that connection that you're building is also building your fan base. It's creating people that are no longer an audience member, but at the end of the night, they're your friend.
Yeah.
And I think that's very, very important for any entertainer, to take every individual person and treat them as though they're the most important person in the room.
Yeah, agreed.
And for me, when I was in your show, I mean, even the show was done, of course I wanted to come up and talk to you guys, but I just didn't want to leave. I didn't want to leave the environment. And I'm like, this is perfect. I love everything about this. And, being able to provide a show like that, however many nights a year you guys do that, I can't imagine what it's like being able to go to that show whenever you want and to re-experience that, because it is so personal, knowing the routines and stuff that you guys do and the performances, the way they're performed and stuff like that. It's definitely a magical moment. Like, that is the epitome of what a truly magical moment is, in my opinion.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I noticed Chris Cook down here at the bottom actually said, considering the pandemic, what are our plans for October? Glad you asked.
Yeah.
We've actually already talked to Christian, and we are going to be doing some shows, hopefully in a real venue there at Christian's in Columbia. Also, there is a new business that is opening in Charlotte, North Carolina, that is going to involve a wonderful performance space where you have a glass of wine, you paint. Again, we go with very artsy people. You paint your own canvas, and this same venue is owned by a husband and wife pair, the Robinsons, who are dear friends of ours, and they are. Forgive me, Janet. The name went right out of my head. Joey, do you remember?
Yeah, it's I see that Scott's on here. I hope it's okay. It's called the Magic Canvas.
Yes. Yeah. And very aptly named. And they've also approached us about doing some October gigs. And I hope circumstances will allow it. But regardless, even if the Dark Cabaret has to soldier on in a virtual sense, there will be new fun afoot at the Dark Cabaret in October.
Very cool. That's good to hear. I think everybody kind of needs to shift and pivot just a little bit to approach, what's coming and the things that have already happened with that. And for me personally, not doing a show for 2 months now, like, as a performer, I am just itching. Like, I am fidgeting so bad. Like, I want to do a show, and, in different places of the country and the world, it's always a different circumstance. So definitely play it safe wherever you guys are. If you guys are performers on here, follow the local rules, all that good stuff, no matter how much you want to perform, and definitely find a digital outlet like this here. So very cool. Very cool. Going back to just the idea of the show, the concept, how you were saying you're kind of on the edge there a little bit. Was there ever any kind of kickback from community or anything like that, knowing that your show wasn't really promoted as a magic show, but also was a little bit edgier on the dark side?
Surprisingly, never, as far as I'm aware. Joey, did you?
The only time that we ever got kickback was because they wanted to attend a football game.
Yeah.
So our show, the venue show, is located in a very, very heavy college football town. So there was college football, and we had a show booked that night. No, it was tough. So we eventually, like, once after we had done that a few years, we said, all right, let's find out the football schedule for the next year. We're not going to schedule any dates around football.
Right? Yeah.
But that's really the only thing that detracted. We thought, given the dark nature of the show and the fact we were squarely in the buckle of the Bible Belt, Right. And we play things very, very realistically, but the audiences got it. I mean, right from the outset, they realized, oh, magic doesn't have to be for children, and not that there's anything wrong with performances for families, but the main thing that we had in terms of concern is, I have a really well-behaved, super intelligent 12-year-old that would like this, and I see that you recommend it for like 16 and up, and we've made some exceptions, and it actually has been wonderful, because there have been some kids that if we'd stuck fast to those rules, we never would have met some really great people and some really great families. But really, surprisingly, there has been nothing but overwhelming support from Columbia.
Yeah.
Very cool. That's very, very good to hear. I know, I've had a couple incidences like that. I think when I was first starting out in magic, I was maybe 16 or 17 years old. And of course, everywhere I went, I was showing people magic tricks. And at my church, I'd show magic tricks. And I did the haunted deck to somebody where the cards cut themselves and kicks the chosen card out. And somebody's like, oh, you got to go show Bernice. And she's this little old lady. And so I showed her the haunted deck, and instantly she like threw herself back and gasped. And she's like, oh, witchcraft. I'm like, no. And she wouldn't talk to me for like a month. And finally I had to go, Bernice, I'm going to show you how this works, because I don't want you to think that's me. And so that's like the only gray area I've experienced with in magic. But it's great also knowing that you're performing it so well in anything that you do that gets that reaction and that belief, because that's the way it should be, honestly.
Yeah.
And leave it up to people's.
Sure. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's good.
I was doing table hopping. I had a restaurant that I would work every week, and I remember going in on my Wednesday night to do my show, and they would hold on, I lost you guys. No, there we go. Okay. And they would, I remember there were a few tables, and mind you, this was in a very, very conservative area where I was performing. And there were a few tables. They would see me coming around. They'd say, no, sorry, we don't believe in magic. You cannot perform at our table. Okay. Have a wonderful night. Thank you so much. And then I just venture off. But like I've definitely felt that and dealt with it before, but not for this show. Like once our show hit, after a while, it was like word of mouth. People were, telling their friends, they were bringing, oh, you have to see this, so we never really ran into any type of pushback with the show.
Cool. So that's good to hear. There's no torches and pitchforks outside when the audience leaves. And
no,
there's sometimes are torches. There sometimes are.
Well, that's good, but they're by design, I hope.
Well, we light them. It's not the audience with torches, which is a good thing.
Sure. So you chase the audience out with torches. That's what you're saying.
And sometimes we have to chase the audience out, because a lot of people experienced exactly what you did. They don't want to leave. And finally, there have been a few audiences that it's been 1 a.m. and Christian's like looking at his watch. Are we ever going to call it a night? But they don't want the experience to end. It is a lucky thing that you left, though, because what you didn't know was Steve Daly had those shows so close together at Abercorndabra that we had 20 minutes to reset the entire show for another audience. So by the time we were out of breath.
I came to the last show.
You did? Okay.
I did, but I was also like, our group was in the hallway for like probably 10 to 15 minutes because it was so tight. Like people were leaving as we were coming up.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I knew exactly what was going on. I'm like, there's no way, like a parlor show, like things need to be reset and whatever. And I think Joey, you were even in the back of the room.
Yeah.
It might've been the other way. Who opened that show?
I opened.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah. And then
so, you were in the back of the room setting things up while Joey was doing the introduction. And you were kind of like eyeballing to make sure he was ready to go.
Yeah.
And we actually have this overlapping voice cue. And so I'm frantically getting stuff ready, waiting to hear Joey start the speech so I can finish it. And it's like, oh, don't let me miss it.
Yeah. Yeah. And Steve really made us work for it. But that was, among the things that we've done, that for me is really high up there for like one of the highlights on the amount of love that he has for his people and the attendees that attend the convention. But then also like right after, no, it was while we were setting up, he just came in and just spent time with us. We found out why he was called Tiny Bubbles. You know, we just got to get that one-on-one time that I ran a convention for a very long time. And there were times where I was like too busy to just sit down and just like talk with the people that were attending the convention. You know, Joe and I are part of a group called Slight Club, and it's almost the same thing. You know, we get very, very busy. And it happens in November. It's called Trices, or the Tricks Convention, and we get so busy and so caught up and like who's where, who's doing this, you know, and it just has to be like spread out. But he took the time and really put us through our paces. But he knew what the end product. He knew that it was going to be good, and we felt amazing coming out of it. And it was just such a warm response that we got from everybody. Like for me, it's definitely up there.
Yeah. One of the greatest convention experiences I ever had.
Admittedly, I mean, I've been to Magic Live and a couple others, and I mean, Abercorn for me is the most enjoyable, and I think it's because the numbers are limited, and so it allows that one-on-one time, like what you're talking about. It definitely creates those magical moments. I mean, that we're talking about,
right?
You know, like it's that experience.
Assuming COVID doesn't create the issues that it very well might. Tricks, the convention that Joe was talking about, spelled TRICS, actually happens in November, and he has specifically, Scott Robinson, has specifically limited the attendance of that convention as well. And that intimacy, if you need a fix to tide you over for Abercorn, that's a perfect thing to do the first weekend in November.
Awesome. That's good to know. So, and same thing, anybody else watching, comment anything that you guys know coming up, because people are hungry for this type of stuff here. So don't be shy and take this opportunity to brag about what you got going on or what other people have going on. So very cool. So I think the one thing that impressed me the most about your guys' show, and don't think that I'm talking down about this, because I know behind the scenes there's a lot going on. I mean, there's a lot going on. I have your notes. I have your books. There's a lot going on. Like I read them and I'm like, holy smokes, you would have never known. But I love it because to the audience eye, it's so simplistic. It's not hard to follow. And you pull, you know, different elements in entertainment other than just magic. I don't know if this is in every show, but I mean, there's Edgar Allan Poe stuff, there's Twilight Zone stuff. You know, I mean, it's stuff that everybody's kind of familiar with, and for them, it really does kind of create that personal connection in those moments. So, for me, like, I'm curious, what got you guys started down this path for this style of show? Like, what is your guys' influence?
It was a bet.
It was what?
It was a bet. I bet my mentor. See, he taught me mentalism and hypnotism when I was in college, and I really loved mentalism, and I thought, and hypnotism for that matter. But I thought, you know, there's something lacking here, because I'd been an illusionist all my life. I was determined to be the next David Copperfield. I'll tell you sometime how that worked out. But I was missing the fact that there was a real visual element to magic that seemed to be lacking in mentalism, because a lot of mentalism was very formal, lecture driven. You think of a thing, I will write something down. What did you think of? Boom. And that's about as much visual as you ever got. And I said to George, I said, you know, there should be ways you can bring magic into this. I miss things like levitations and animation, you know, where stuff moves around. And he's like, yeah, it just doesn't read as real. And I said, well, what if you did it as a paranormal thing where it's ghosts? And, you know, I'm just spitballing ideas. And he's like, I don't know that would work. And so we made a cash bet. Okay. And sadly, George didn't live long enough to actually pay me. So I got stuck with a good show anyway. So.
I was gonna say he paid you in the fact that you were forced to do this show and you've done it well. So.
Well, thank you very much. That's flattering.
Yeah. Yeah.
Joey, for you, sort of what pointed you in this direction?
To be honest with you, I was doing a lot of like family and traditional magic. I had a bird act at one point, but I'd never found anything that really kind of spoke to me. And so I floundered on a lot of the things that I was doing. I developed like a coin routine, all of this stuff, and it just wasn't like really speaking to me. And so I was with my mentor at the time, and we would meet every week and just kind of session, rehearse, practice, go over new ideas, all of this stuff. And he said, "Hey, there's this guy in town. I'm going to invite him over. We'll see if we're going to let him into our group." I said, "All right." So Joe walked in the door, and I can still remember he's wearing a brown T-shirt with classic Hammer film monsters on, or Universal monsters on it. And I was like, I've seen this guy before. And it was like, then I realized we had been attending conventions regionally for years at that point, and we were like two ships passing in the night. Didn't know each other existed, but he at that point had been living in Colombia. He was there on a job assignment, and he presented the early version of what is now the Poe effect in our show. Mm-hmm. And it blew me away. The thinking, and we got to talking about like his background. He was a theater major and everything like that. And I said, well, I have a friend. Why don't I invite you over for dinner? And my friend was Christian Thee, our other performance partner. And I said, let's head over there and let's have a full like conversation. I want to pick your brain. I want to get to know you, and I'll invite you over to this wonderful home that is another magician. And we just we had dinner that night, or a few nights later, and it just hit it off. And it was around this time, right afterwards, the impetus for the whole thing started out. So Christian had a home here in New York, in Brooklyn Heights, right on the outskirts of Brooklyn. Well, I'd say outskirts. It's like on the rim of Brooklyn, closer to Manhattan. And so as a Broadway scenic designer, he had essentially purchased a garage that had no windows. It had no outdoor lighting whatsoever. And he had converted it into a living space. And you walked in, the house had 7 secret doors. It had like a grassy garden in the center of it. All of this out of his imagination. His studio, the dining room itself, would essentially fold up like a stage set. So he would have a full studio. Okay. And so, we had this wonderful person that would host dinner parties at that home. But a couple years prior to meeting Joe, Christian's partner had passed. And so we were just trying to think of ways to like get people interested in Christian, especially in our area, to generate the traffic. And so Joe and I had been talking. We were like, he had the show concept. I said, what would it take to get legs under this thing? And let's host a dinner party or dinner type show here at Christian's house. And then it just kind of slowly snowballed from there. One thing led to another. We did, I think we did like 3 months of test shows. Just like we would put questionnaires in people's seats, and then they come see the show. Like we foot the bill for everything. We'd provide them with wine and dessert for the evening. They get the full experience. We would tweak everything that we need to tweak. We would have their questionnaires. They would submit it, things we needed to cut down. Like we were really kind of like learning off of the feedback that we were getting. And then it was an October debut. I'm almost certain it was.
It was February.
Was
February. It was February, wow. And it was Friday the 13th was our debut.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Oh man, it's been so long.
It's been a while. It's been a while. And the funny thing is, the first test audience that we had was Slight Club, and there was one like gallery owner from Colombia. So there was one muggle amongst all these magicians. And we ended up using, I think, as many of Carolyn's ideas as we did Slight Club's, because she came at this from a whole different viewpoint. She attended theater, but she wasn't a theater person per se. But she knew what she liked, and because she'd run an art gallery and a commercial shop that sold really high-end merchandise, she knew what she liked, and she knew what it took to get it. And she's like, there's some good stuff here, and it just really being open to criticism. And if you ever want a barometer for how mystifying your show is, find a few people, find a family that does want to hang on till 1 a.m. and talk, and just ask them, you said this was your favorite, what did you like the best? What didn't you like? And then, this is humbling, ask them, how do you think we did that? You will learn so much, because quite often, one of mine, I'm like, that's your favorite. Well, how do you think I did it? And he sat there and he said, this is stupid. He said, it's totally stupid. And he told me exactly how the trick worked. He told me precisely how the trick worked. It was so humbling. But what was the most humbling was he followed that up with, and I know that's ridiculous. Nobody would ever be stupid enough to go to that much effort just to do that.
Yep.
I was stupid enough.
Yeah, but I mean, that was kind of like the jumping off point for us, and then it just kept rolling, and then we were getting booked in different places. Joseph was being booked in Atlanta. We did East Coast Spirit Sessions. We had the shows at the gallery in Charleston, South Carolina, and so there were just all of these things and ways for us to just kind of explore what this show could do. The venue show is one show, like that's one show that we can do. Bring us to a venue like Abercrombie, that's another show that we're giving. Like the bones and everything are still there, but we get to shine in different ways in different venues on the shows that we've adapted so far.
Very cool. Let me ask you, on that stage setup you had at Abercrombie with all the drapes and curtains and stuff like that, was that yours? Did you bring all that?
Yeah.
Holy smokes, like that was a lot of stuff. Now,
Steve and Michaela did end up providing a few things for us. Lights, and they got some things to like dress the set. They found like an old lamp and some lace, and we just kind of rolled with it. We knew the parameters of what we would be able to like work out within the capacity of the room. But it was a challenge that we knew that we had been working towards, because that wide of a room isn't necessarily ideal for any type of magician. But we balanced it out and made it work, played to the entire room, and it was fantastic. But that was just a situation where we just kind of had to make choices in decisions on the fly based on the things that we had learned at that point.
Gotcha.
But I'll tell you something. We did not know, having avoided magicians a lot, we didn't really know, is this going to go over well in Middle America for magicians that are not specifically niche interested in what we're doing, this very story-driven dark stuff. And we didn't know what to expect. So after it was over, Joey and I quickly packed things up, and we post-mortem the show immediately while everything's still fresh in our minds. And so we're sitting there discussing, okay, well, here were the problems that we encountered. And I thought it was good that you did this, and this was a little weak, and this was better in the first show, or whatever. And we weren't really thinking all that much about it, but we got our equipment, and we got onto the elevator, and we went down to the lobby, and it opened up, and there was a magician standing there performing. And we walked off the elevator, and we assumed he had just finished because everybody started applauding. And I didn't want to appear rude because we missed his whole performance. So we started applauding, and I went, "Who are we applauding?" And the magician closest to me leaned over and went, "Well, we were all applauding you. We thought you were brilliant." And it came as such a shock, a legitimate shock, because you get inside your own head and you do director's notes and everything, and you just don't realize sometimes in the moment that it was okay. They did seem to respond well, but I was so grateful to Steve for giving us that opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things that definitely plays in your favor across the board, and especially at that convention, is there's not a lot of shows out there that kind of fit in your genre as like a duo show. And I think just for that alone, it is special. And then just as far as you guys have taken it, as far as production and the story and the performance and stuff like that, I mean, it stands out among any other show for that reason in my mind. Because I mean, like you said, there's illusion shows, there's mentalism shows, which one of my friends kindly calls those envelope shows because that's strictly what they are. And and I had the exact same thought actually when going in and seeing, the mentalists. Okay, they're doing mentalism type stuff. I mean, it was refreshing to see a non-envelope mentalism show essentially. So it was nice to get a visual mentalism show that didn't feel like a mentalism show. It just felt like it was happening, and you got to see that firsthand.
That was I can't honestly tell you that was like the end goal. Yes, like that's exactly what we had, and that's where from point A to point B, amazing, right on top. No, we had to learn the power of no. And Joseph, we come at things completely differently. Joseph is the method. Joseph is the history. He will come to an effect and just layer it in with like, we've got this method. I want to do this. I want it to look like this. I have to visually see it. I have to put my hands on it, but then I think of it from a theatrical point of view. Christopher Cook, who was on here, it was my producing partner for a number of theater productions in the Columbia area for a very long time. And so that was that's my background among the other things that I do. But, using that perspective and being able to allow ourselves to, we're friends, but say, no, that idea isn't going to flow, or that's not in the vein of the things that like visually we see the show becoming, or it is, or what the next step is. Joseph has a litany of just ideas, and his brain works on that level. Mine doesn't. I just don't have the brain capacity for that. Mine is strictly what the audience is seeing. I look at it from a theatrical point of view on an entertainment value. Mm-hmm. And then we work on like the structure, on like the basis of what the method is and what the story and where we're pulling those ideas from, because everything in our show is something very personal about our own lives. I'll let Joe kind of discuss like his elements, but part of my show, I'm talking about like horror monsters, like from the Universal family. And these were my influence growing up, because I would watch Friday Night Chiller Theater with my dad. And these are things that I grew up watching. And then I was able to kind of build that into one of the routines that I do. So being able to kind of have that as a springboard kind of lends some authenticity to a lot of the things that we're doing. And, we're not reaching for an esoteric subject matter. We're not coming up with this like really random, this is the space rock from, the planet, whatever. And, it's going to float and do all this other things. That's not us. But we pull from the things that interest us, and we know that if we love it that much, there are other people that are going to love it too.
Right. And Joseph, I'll let you kind of fill that here in just a moment. But, for me, like I said, I love everything about like Houdini. And it's funny because I'm not a huge Houdini buff. Like, I don't know like all the history, all the details, all the dates, his entire life story for people to just Q&A me on the spot. Like, I don't know that stuff. I know what he's done. I know the impact that he had with what he had to work with, and the reputation he's made, and that people still know who he is. For me, I think I purely just respect that. And so it's weird when I actually get into the closing part of my show and I consider the last act that I do kind of a tribute to him, telling just about his last stunt and why it's important to me. I mean, I almost get borderline emotional. Like, and it's so weird because I'm like, why am I getting so emotional? Like every time it's like telling it the first time. Because I guess for me, it's just influenced my show that much and has kind of pivoted the direction that I went, that I'm like, and this is what it comes down to. This is why I'm on stage in front of you right now. And so to pull pieces that actually mean something to you, I think the audience knows that and they feel that and they recognize that. I did a school show for like middle school kids, and of course I didn't do a stunt, but I still, did a little tribute piece to Houdini at the end. And a parent that I knew had their kid there, and I didn't know that. And they talked to me like later in the week, like, "Oh my gosh, my kid came home so excited to learn about Houdini, and they told me all these things that he did." And blah, blah. I'm like, that is awesome. Like, I never expect that from a middle school kid, but that's what it ended up being. And so, getting that type of feedback of knowing that people recognize that that's what you care about, and they want to learn that and feed off of that. I mean, that's so rewarding. So.
Well, coming from my background, I have a degree in theater, and I did ages and ages of other people's words. I was the actor saying other people's words. I'm not a writer. I'm not disciplined in that way because writing. God bless Christopher Cook, because writing
Which he is still
those,
watching, by the way.
It's one of those skills that I have to work so hard at that. So the thing that stuck with me from playwriting in college was write what you know. And so Joey and I really were testing a theory in bringing our own personal interests and our families and our loves into the show. The Dark Cabaret happened to be what it was named because I was asked about doing a show when I was living in Charlotte, and I needed a title. And it was going to be a club-based thing, so cabaret was kind of natural. And I had just come out of kind of a messy divorce, and I was just, angry at the world. And that is not who I am at all. So in a big sense, the Dark Cabaret is not really terribly well named. It's catchy, but there is so much nostalgia involved in the show. And I genuinely think that's part of the reason we've held the interest of these same audiences time and time again, because they've become very personally invested in what we've invested ourselves in. I think that's a key component. I think too many magicians structure a show by saying, well, I'm going to open with this because it's flashy, and I'm going to close with this because it's my most impressive thing. And it becomes theater of the props. And, I'll grab this thing and do it. And there's not really firm transitions, and there's not a build and a structure. So Joey and Christopher and Christian coming at this in a play production sense, and me coming at it as this is what I can bring to it, and these are some of the stories I want to tell. It made for the synthesis that eventually gelled into the Dark Cabaret as it is now, and we love it. We thoroughly still, after all these years and as many arguments over will this work, does this work, no this doesn't, yes this does, we're still the very best of friends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's awesome that you guys can work through that. I know I have a show, and we haven't done it for a few years now, with a good friend of mine who's a hypnotist and mentalist, called Premonition Live. And it's kind of the same thing. Like, he does the mentalism side of things, and I do the stunts, like the fire eating, the needle swallowing, glass eating, things like that. And it meshes very well together. But we went through that phase of, like, well, are you sure you really want to do that? Like, type of thing, and trying to figure out where it fits, so it just doesn't feel like we're each taking turns and say, look what I can do, and then the next person performs. So to find that kind of symmetry there between you guys, it definitely plays very well. And like I said, a duo show for anybody is difficult.
Yeah. And a duo, for us being a duo bizarre magic show, we're out of left field. Like, there's not a lot. I don't know of another duo. I know Mark Salem did a show with somebody else. Anyways, but
But you've got to understand, Christian brings his own element to it whenever he performs, which is the main show that we do. And this guy, he's been doing and inventing magic since before the two of us were born. I'm not going to say how long before, but back in Joey's background, there's actually, I see the linking ring. At the time, he's on the cover of the linking ring that year or that month. And at the time, he was the youngest cover boy ever in linking ring. So he's no slouch in the magic department either. But
Very cool.
when we tour, there's a lot of things he's like, no, I don't really want to spend that many hours on the road, and I don't want to schlep props from one side of the country to the other. And our road trip to Abercorn Dabra, I don't think I've ever laughed so much in my life. The stupid things that happen to you on the road, and the wonderful experience going through Chicago and the Chicago Magic Lounge, and hanging out with David Parr, and so many just phenomenal things. I noticed, and I didn't want to slip far enough by that I forgot to answer it. Phil Hanyon asked, do you guys have any plans to bring the show to Europe in the future? Yes. Travel permitting, absolutely yes. What you actually need to make that work is simply having enough bookings to make the travel worthwhile.
Right.
And I really hope that travel becomes a real feasibility in the near future rather than the distant future, because we adore travel.
Yeah.
Any chance we get, to sightsee and to go see other things going on in theater and to meet other magicians and see them perform, it's just some of the greatest joys in my life.
Anywhere we can bring the darkness.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully we can get you here sometime in the near future. So that'd be a lot of fun.
We would love it. We would absolutely love it.
Yeah. And I think the theater is kind of medium sized for you guys. So I actually had another magician reach out to me from Maryland wanting to book a bunch of shows here. And I'm like, I'm just starting out, man. Like, I haven't even done a show yet. And this was like probably a month after the whole COVID thing started. And I'm like, are you sure it's going to be worth your travel and your time? So I mean, let's work it out, and we'll make it work for everybody, and get you some lectures. Reach out to Omaha and Minneapolis and Sioux City, all those places in the area. So that'd definitely be a lot of fun.
That would be a lot of fun. Yeah,
we'd love it.
Let's see here. We're just actually, it's crazy talking about how time flies. We're already just over an hour mark here for us.
Wow. Do we have any audience left, or have we bored them away?
No, we're doing good. Like, comments are still coming through. We're doing great. Let me scroll through some of those real quick, see if there's any good relevant comments.
Hi, Danny.
Yeah.
Daniel Greenwolf, our Celtic magician brother. Hi, it's so good to see you.
Maybe you know this guy. I don't know.
Yeah. Hey, Chris.
Chris, hi.
Yeah.
Right here in the hometown.
Supporter of us and the community. He does a lot of good work in the Columbia area. I know for a fact, I think if I'm right, Chris is helps run the United Way in Columbia, South Carolina. Yep.
Very cool. Very cool. Yep. Kathy, you guys know her. She says, hey guys. Dolores. There you go. We got Leisha.
Hey, yeah. Cousin.
Well, you got the family representing.
I know.
See, my family actually doesn't have the tech skills to get on one of these things.
Well, you've been the most successful so far starting out here, Joseph, with getting the tech going. So,
well, it doesn't hurt that a lot of our Slight Club brethren are actually working at Microsoft. So I've had a couple of one-on-one coachings. So
there you go. Chris, these guys are great storytellers and have carefully selected props in their show. So shout out to you guys on that. I think this is very relevant. Joseph, I'm cutting you off there. Scott, he said you look like the dashboard bug.
No, go right ahead. I read this, and Scott, this is deeply flattering. Thank you for mentioning it.
Yeah, so that is awesome. I mean, that goes back to connecting with the audience, which I think more people definitely need to do. What is this? Maybe you guys can answer what he's talking about here.
Oh, so I
it's your bit, so you talk.
Yeah. So this bit is in one of the rooms that you go into. It's an actual magic parlor that is based on the Magic Castle. And so it's got like a close-up table, and that's where I perform. That's where my section of the show is. But in the room itself, there is an actual Pepper's Ghost illusion in the room. It's a miniaturized version. And so Chris had created this, and he created, are you familiar with the Green Fairy? Do you know what that is?
I'm not.
Okay. No. So the Green Fairy, it's supposedly, it is a, if you're familiar with the drink absinthe, the European one, it's a derivative of wormwood, and it's supposed to have hallucinogenic properties. Well, they say if you drink too much absinthe, you'll see the Green Fairy. Well, she actually lives in a bird cage in the room, and it's basically a Pepper's Ghost illusion. Have we thought about putting it in our promo? I don't think it'll fit just aesthetically because it's a little hard to shoot, but I know for a fact it may get an appearance a little bit down the road on something else that I'm working on.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I love that illusion in itself. Like, I've considered putting something like that in here just because it's so cool.
Well, like, we know somebody who can create it for you.
Christian, to my knowledge, is one of the very few people that has ever made the illusion work in a miniature scale, because you've got so much, so many venues, the Haunted Mansion, for instance, that utilizes it extensively, but it's so massive, it's completely impractical. And
right, yeah, like,
it was just so amazing to walk into Christian's petite parlor of prestidigitation and actually see this live fairy that would wave at you and is fanning herself with a large leaf, and the fact is, the leaf is to scale. I mean, the fairy is like 4 inches tall.
Yeah.
And it's really amazing.
Yep. I see Robbie Reeser is commenting, and I can see he's getting a little agitated. Robbie doesn't get agitated, but he says, Dark Cabaret in Columbia one more time. Stop talking about it. Commit, guys. Robbie.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
I promise.
For Robbie, I promise. Absolutely. We're coming back. Absolutely.
Another one here from Christopher. Not sure if they mentioned it yet, but the Dark Cabaret is the single longest consecutively running theatrical event in the Midlands.
In South Carolina. Yep.
So very cool. That's pretty awesome. What is this? I don't know what this is. Maybe you know what that means.
3 sessions. Last year they had an interesting approach to running the show, that we would have 3 different performances running at the same time, and we would rotate in small audiences to give more of a parlor feel. And she may be asking us to chime in with that, but Kathy, I can't wait to talk to you and Rich about it.
Yeah,
gotcha. Christopher Cook is blowing up the comments here. This one here.
Yeah, I think we
did. Yeah, yep. we got that one. He is one of our best friends and just a tremendous force promoting the Dark Cabaret, and I'm so incredibly grateful.
Writer and playwright, and he's done a number of shows. He's done his adaptation of The Phantom of the Opera, not the musical, based on the novel by Gaston Leroux. He and I collaborated on The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. We produced that show for a number of years, and then we did concurrently. I was producing and directing The Legend of Sleepy Hollow while he was doing Frankenstein, and he has he did a collaboration with the Stoker estate. He is a collaborator with Dr. Stoker, and he did a novel based on Dracula as well.
With the blessing of the Stoker estate.
Yep.
That's awesome.
And he's currently got a big project coming up, but I don't think we're allowed to talk about it just yet.
Well, we'll see if he'll comment. Hey, Chris, or can we talk about the project that you're working on?
Maybe an exclusive teaser right here at least.
Yeah.
In the meantime, Chris here gave you guys a compliment. There you go. Your interaction with audiences, they arrive.
Yep.
So I think that's a big part. There's the European.
It definitely is in our home venue for sure. It is introducing them to a house, and not everybody was expecting a house. We keep things deliberately mysterious, but I'm glad that he appreciates what we do there.
Oh, Chris said, "Go for it." So Chris is now he is producing a story based on Amityville. Yeah,
very cool.
I'm working with him currently. He's entered into a playwrights festival with this show, and I know it was right when COVID and everything was happening, but he has been entered in as a finalist. His show has been entered in as a finalist, and if it gets picked up, then we get to actually produce the show here in New York.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that is awesome. So best of luck with that, Chris, and thanks for allowing us to share that. That's really, really cool. So definitely have to look for that a little bit. Okay, so I think that kind of goes through most of the questions there. Let's go to the website. Let's kind of talk about that a little bit, some things that you have on there. And let me pull up, make sure I share the right screen and not the promo video again.
Beware, it is still like under construction. With the help, the wonderful New Georgia Wonder, Tiffany Allen. She is helping us like put together our website, and we just got everything up. Our store is on there. I guess you'll have that up in just a second.
Yeah, there we go.
Oh, sweet. There we go. Yeah, there's Christian with us. That's our trio shot.
That little box he's holding is one of the most interesting talking points of the whole evening, but you're going to have to come to South Carolina to see it.
Yeah.
Let's scroll down. That's the promo video we just watched, correct? Okay, so if you guys want to revisit that video, that is there. Now, the couple important things here. One, you can learn about the show here. Let's see. So this here, Joseph, you let me hold that.
Our little souvenir from the original Twilight Zone.
Yeah. So I do actually want to talk about that a little bit, because we already talked about the piece from the Reading Rainbow, and now the Twilight Zone thing. So you shared a story. I'm going to put you on the spot here just a little bit. You shared a story about a performance you did based around Twilight Zone a little bit that had somebody special in the audience.
Which is what led to all this. Some of my best childhood memories were sitting in front of a black and white television set, with my great aunt Sally watching old episodes of the Twilight Zone. And I was shocked years later, whenever I was on a color television and heard the theme and went running in, that it was actually still in black and white. That was not what I expected at all. I just assumed if it was her TV that I could see it later in color. But sure. I just always loved the approach that Rod Serling and several other writers, but Rod in particular, took with that show, and the way they were able to comment on socioeconomics and politics and all that through the genre of fantasy. And I always did some sort of Serling tribute in almost every show that I did. Well, I was at a writers conference as an entertainer, not as a writer. Not my thing. And I got a call from a woman named Janine, and she said, I'm putting together a little soiree at my house, and, could you come and do some of the stuff that you did? And yeah, absolutely. And so I went along, and I did a piece that was a tribute to Serling. It's not the same one you're familiar with, but it was well received. In fact, the audience kind of, gave that a real rousing round of applause. And at the end, I got a standing ovation. Not that it was deserved for this performance, but I understood that later on. I'm packing up the show, and I'm thinking back. That piece went incredibly well. I need to remember exactly how I phrased everything within my script. What was it? And this little lady came up to me, and she said, "I've talked to Janine, and we want to know how you knew I would be here." And I looked at this woman and I went, I'm sorry. I guess you have the advantage. And she went, worst laugh I've ever heard to this day. And she said, it was a coincidence. My God, Rod would have loved that. And she stuck out her hand and she said, I'm Carol Serling, the widow of the Twilight Zone. And that led to late night discussion and a few glasses of wine and the most wonderful friendship. And we were pen pals. She insisted, even once her kids talked her through the nuances of writing an email, she insisted that we do it the old-fashioned way. Sure. And she would write me handwritten letters, and she mailed me so many wonderful things that belonged to Rod or that were important little mementos from the family. And we stayed in touch for a lot of years. And it was so thrilling with Jordan Peele launching the series again this year, seeing her name as an executive producer. And sadly, Carol passed this year before she was able to see the final few episodes, which is a pity because the final episode of Jordan Peele's series this season would resonate with any classic Twilight Zone fan.
Yeah. I think there's always a little bit of anxiety when you perform something like that. Now, to this caliber of having somebody like that in the audience, you would never think would happen.
Well, it at least explained the standing ovation. I didn't earn it. They were standing up for the memory of Rod Serling, and well, they should have. Exactly.
But when you perform like a dedication piece like that, and if you knew in advance that she was going to be in the audience, I couldn't imagine how hesitant you would be to even want to come close to performing that.
I'm not sure I could have gotten through it had I known, but
yeah,
she was always so kind and generous, and she actually had talked about redoing our Dollhouse piece and having me use Talkie Tina.
Oh, very cool.
From the Living Doll episode, and so many things I wish we'd had the opportunity to do.
Yeah, so that's amazing that somebody that close to Rod got her blessing essentially for you to perform that and praised your performance for it. So that's awesome for anybody to be able to receive something like that. So, media page here. Let's see.
Oh yeah, make sure that we're on the social media. If you aren't fans of our Facebook, get on our Facebook page and give us a like.
Please.
And also, what's that?
I said please.
And then also our Instagram page is hooked up there. You get to kind of see some of the stuff that we're working on, some of our other like behind the scenes projects and everything like that.
Yeah, this photo here's got a good story behind it too, doesn't it? A little bit.
Which one is that? Oh. Yeah.
Yes, that's actually a bona fide star. That is Thing from the 1990s Addams Family movie series, and Thing, as you might expect, needing to be very nimble of finger, they looked at hand models, they looked all over, and they ended up hiring a magician, a fellow by the name of Christopher Hart, and he's become a very good friend over the years, and he was kind enough. It's extraordinarily funny. He's over 6 feet tall, and I am a fairly short guy, and he somehow contorted his body into such a position that we could stage that shot, and you couldn't see any of him, and it just one of my favorite shots.
It's funny actually. I forgot that. This photo was on here. I just seen it for the first time again since we originally met, and I actually just did this to my son the other day. We took a picture, and so that's funny looking at this. I'm like, hey, maybe there's some sort of subliminal influence there that I didn't even consider. So that's pretty funny. And so yeah, I really like this photo too, kind of showing the work that goes into your setting of the stage, and honestly how close the people are.
Oh yeah, that is so. We have this Joe's portion of the show takes place in what is dubbed what it is the studio that Christian has set up, but above it there's a loft area, and that has acted as our lighting booth. But the thing is there's no view to downstairs, so you're kind of doing, you can see the lights but you can't see everything. So
Yeah.
this is a shot from the lighting booth, like looking over the edge to see it down there, Joe performing like right above the audience. They are only like 3 or 4 feet away from him.
And I mean that's really cool. I mean that's definitely a unique experience that nobody really gets ever at a magic show.
Yeah, and again, like in a behind the scenes thing as well, if you look to Joe's right, or you guys left essentially,
Okay.
that screen right there, since we do everything, so our palm reader is also a license, he's a professional lighting designer, so he handles the lights, and then I run a set of lights from back there, and then I'm also Joseph's like backstage person, so I run his music and then like help handle props as well. That's a behind the scenes thing, like we do it all in house.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And our wing space to the sides is so tiny that Joey spends most of the show just hunched on this little stool just off stage. And the truth is, we've come up with wonderful and funny and theatrical ways of handling it. But the truth is, Joey could probably hand me a prop from off stage and just reach.
Yeah.
And put it on stage because the quarters are so tight. But it's that intimacy that has really built such a following. There are people that are passionate about it, people that came like 5 times the first year, and then they've brought friends, and then they've brought friends, and it's I hope it never ends. I hope we'll always have that kind of support. We certainly try to give them a good show for the gift of not only the monies but the time, because it's a big commitment that you're going to take 3 hours out of your week late at night to come and spend it with these 3 crazy guys. And assorted gals. Tiffany Allen, that's one thing we need to talk about when we get to the online store.
Yeah.
So,
okay. Yeah. And let's head there now. So whatever you got, and we'll come back to contact information here at the end. So
it's just the web address, that there's no need to go there at all.
okay.
But we have 1 or 2 trinkets up for sale.
Yeah. So we've got our full line of lecture notes and some of the effects that we have created. Matter of fact, there is a like collector's piece that Joe has handcrafted. Is I won't say the French term. It is the death wand. That's the one that's down there on the bottom left. And then for a very, very limited time, we are honored that she would let us put it on our site for this weekend. It is the notes for the new Georgia Wonder, Tiffany Allen. And if you're not familiar with this act, these are the notes to get, because she's done the research. This act is almost 150 years old, almost forgotten, and she's bringing it back. For those that aren't familiar, this is a feat unlike anything anybody has ever seen. And the fact that she's bringing it to modern day audiences and really kind of wowing people, it's absolutely amazing. And she's allowed us to have limited access for a very short period of time for her notes that we have available. It'll be through the weekend, and then she's got some other things, and she's got notes that she's got to get out there as well.
That's very cool. That's super cool. And then what else do we got here? Yep, and then the package deal for the lecture notes.
Yeah, we have a few package deals on there, so you can get the notes individually. Or you can get any set that we have on there. There's combined, and we're offering a convention special starting today that will run the course of the convention. And then after the convention, after Saturday or after the weekend, we're going to pull them. So you can get the discount for the sets. We've got one that has one of Joseph's effects called Photo Morgana. You can get that with the notes at a discounted price. You could get just the notes individually, or you can get like a package set of notes as well. And then we have another deal, I think, with our Death card deck as well.
Very cool. I think it was the Death card. I'm for sure going to buy that from you guys because I think that was the one you might have ran out of at the convention. Like everybody swiped that up really fast.
Before that convention was over, I think we were sold out of pretty much everything.
Yeah.
The Death card is the one that explains the evolution of playing cards from the tarot cards.
Yeah,
and it's kind of an interesting effect. I actually hadn't thought about it. We chose a back design on the special card that is a skull and crossbones, and I was so wrapped up in the story that I wrote for it, and a friend of ours actually purchased it, and he had written and illustrated a book on pirates. And I never thought, a pirate theme show, what a great skull and crossbones. That's perfect.
Yeah.
So it's really a lot of this stuff. We have ways that we present it, but if you've got just a little bit of imagination, it's amazing how you can take this in different directions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And, I am blown away at the price point of these lecture notes, to be honest, because, you guys were actually, Joseph, you were kind enough to gift the lecture notes to me, if you remember right. Because I had given you the Harry Anderson items.
Yeah.
That's right. I knew, and that's something I should have brought up when we were talking about the show, because one of the props that we use in the show was a gift from Harry, and I didn't count on how emotional after Harry's death, how emotional I was going to get on stage that first time, and the show sometimes is not the show. It's so personal, and I'm glad it touched you. And thank you for sharing Harry's stuff with us, because I'm always going to be his biggest fan.
Yeah. No, it was definitely an honor to give it to you. Not to my own horn, so to speak, or brag or whatever, but I think it's important that when you see somebody who has such a passion for something, and I can tell your connection right away with Harry, that if you're able to facilitate them in any way with their passion, I think it's important that you do that. And so I see that right away. And when I had something personal of Harry's, which I just brought with me for no reason at all, really, other than I had just recently acquired them, I was like, okay, I brought them for a reason. This is what it is. They're now officially Joseph. So, so that just worked out. So, thank you in return for those lecture notes. And as I was going to say, though, I am extremely impressed with the price point of these for the amount of information that's in them.
I'll just give you a real quick. So, Dark Thoughts are the notes that are right from our show. This is a lot of the bizarre material and our thinking on that. And then you'll have Conjurations, which is the Joseph's more traditional take on traditional magic. So you'll get like the cups and balls and like building character and all of that and pushing your act to the next level. And then the big one is T, which is the this is the closer to our show. This has taken us in a lot of different places. The emotional impact at the end is so high. People people have wept like at the end of this because the connection is so strong. It's powerful, and I want to say that as objectively as possible. But to hit the emotional note that this effect does, I mean, I have never encountered a trick that's like this. So that's T. That's our closer to the show. And then Travis.
And I want to point out that part of what makes that one special is we spent a lot of time, and I think this may have been part of what Scott was talking about, Scott Klinger in the comments. It could easily carry someone into a very dark place, and we spent a great deal of time researching with grief counselors and therapists and even morticians, because if you're going to address a subject matter like someone who's passed on, you need to be able to handle whichever direction it might go. So I will say, although it does have the impact that Joey said, and it really does, it's tremendous what happens and where that leads us, but it's not for a beginner. So
yeah,
No.
that one is for a seasoned professional that really takes great care and pains with their audience. And that's the one caveat I want to put on that.
And then as a gift, Travis is going to work it out, but we're going to raffle off a set of Joseph's Dark Thoughts notes. So whatever the parameters are, Travis is going to set that up, and then you'll get a set of notes from us through Travis.
Awesome. Thank you guys very, very much for that. So same thing as we did for the last one. Make sure you guys support the Dark Cabaret, support Joey and Joseph there. Like Dark Cabaret anywhere you can. If you're on Instagram, follow their page. If you're on Facebook, make sure to follow their page, see where they're going. I mean, they're talking about doing shows in Europe. There's no chance to where they could possibly end up. So I have some followers here in the UK that would be interested to know that, but most of you guys here are kind of in the Midwest area. So let's show them some love and let's get them back here, guys, because that show was awesome. So I would definitely pay to see it again outside of the convention even. So
thank you so much.
Absolutely. Now, the Photo Morgana, I have to say, I have that one as well. I love it. I've modified it just a little bit as far as the final revelation. Close to what you do almost with the Poe. It's just not as advanced. But that is a really, really cool revelation. And again, that one there is pretty easy as far as skill level based.
Oh, it's very simple. Do you want me? I think I can do it virtually. Do you want to see it? Because for everybody else, it might be kind of out there. Here we go. Yeah. So
let me pull you full screen here. There we go.
What Travis is talking about is we have some reproduction cabinet cards. Let me get centered here.
I know everything's kind of reversed for me.
Yeah, I'm trying to learn how to present because I'm left-handed, so this is already quite a shot. But anyway, we've got about 24 different cabinet cards from the 1880s. They're reproductions, of course, and basically you would have someone reach out and touch. But in this particular world, Travis, I'm just going to run my finger across the top here, and I'm going to let you be the legitimate audience here. I think I can get everything in front.
Yeah.
And you just tell me where you want to stop. We've not prearranged anything, and this can be done in a virtual sense just this way.
Yes. Stop.
Right there?
Yes, sir.
Now, I've got a couple of cards here. There's this one. There's this one.
Lowest card.
Which,
right there. Yep. You
this
got
one
your finger on it. Yes.
All right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move that to the top. Okay?
Yes.
And I'm actually just going to pry it right off the top and show you the image. And you had a free selection, and you seem to think that was fair. However, I think it's interesting if you can widen me out again.
Yes. Let's pull that back. There we go.
I don't know if you noticed, this is actually my grandmother when she was very young, and I always keep a photo of Granny around. And it's been here the whole time.
That is awesome. And that is purely, I mean, as open a prediction as you can get. I mean, essentially.
Well, if you were doing it with playing cards and you had a framed playing card sitting in your shop or on your set, or it just doesn't make a lot of sense. But in the context of even doing a show, it's just like, wonder what's up with the antique photograph. And nobody ever realizes the punchline until there it is. And we ship those out in little muslin bags. Unfortunately, we no longer have any of the ones that have the Dark Cabaret logo. We're big on fleur-de-lis down in this part of the country. But they come in those little muslin bags, which can be tea-stained and aged if you want to go that route. The photos can be anyone that you choose to put a story with, and it's not just this one image. It's not just Granny. Every Photo Morgana has a different image with it, And it does come as kind of a surprise sometimes, what image you get and what you come up with. But if anyone ever gets stuck for a story, even though I can't write, I can certainly tell a good yarn. So I can put something together for you.
So suggestive sales pitch, if you're going to do the routine, maybe get a couple decks, a couple sets of those. So that way, if you have repeat audience, you can have a couple different outs and stuff like that. But
different opportunity.
Yeah.
And it's 100% surefire, and it's idiot proof. And trust me when I say this, Joey has been dealing with this idiot for about 9 years now. And if I can do it, anybody can.
And to kind of go into the quality, I mean, those cards that you get, I mean, they're a thick, very nicely aged card. I mean, they authentically look vintage. And I don't think they're going to wear out anytime soon. I've had mine now for, when was the last time I seen you guys? Like 3 years now? 2 years, something like that, 2 years. And I mean, mine are still like new. So of course I keep them in that pouch and that bag. And
the ones I just showed you are my original deck.
Yep.
And this was a question. It was going to be cost prohibitive for me to make this effect because it costs so much to get them printed and all the stuff that we have to do even after that is over. And I was bemoaning the fact that I was never going to do it. And I may have been Joey or Christian. I'm not sure. Someone's like, well, you've talked about performing for other magicians. Why don't you make this an item? And I'm like, do you think anyone but me would really want this? And it's insane how many people have wanted to include this. And I every time that someone sends me like an Instagram photo or something that here's how I'm doing it, I'm like, theirs is better than mine, so it's really limited by your imagination.
Yeah,
it really is. And that's one of the things, honestly, with most of your items that you sell or routines, that it could be tweaked to any style of performance. So even like the T book that you have, it comes with a fabulous, very powerful, very impactful, emotional routine. But if you wanted to lighten that up, I mean, it has a lot of room to play there too.
It does. And I should point out, if you want to, especially considering what we're going through in the world right now, one of the presentations that I don't know if I've outlined it in the book, but I definitely want to voice it, is rather than making it someone that you've passed, that you have many pleasant memories of, making it one of your heroes. And it could very much be someone that is still very much with us and present and influencing your life. So
right.
I look through the lens of how we created it for my show, but that effect has really taken on a life of its own, and the collaborative nature of everything, not just Joey and Christian and Tiffany and Curtis and Brandon and Hannah and Brad Wagster and Natalie Brown. I could go on for hours with the people that have collaborated with the Dark Cabaret, but people like Bob Taylor and Christopher Hannibal in Slight Club years ago, when I was like, I don't really know what I'm going to do with this whole teabag thing, and just them asking the right questions and making the right suggestion, because I think too often magicians operate in a vacuum and they don't really ask people, not just magicians, but all kinds of people, what they think. And I've gained so much in collaboration, and I've gained a friend for life just, in Joey and Christian. Doing this has been the greatest joy, not only on stage, but off, and just all the laughs that we've had doing it. It's incredible.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it definitely shows. While your show is a more serious and kind of leans on the darker side, you can tell that you guys are very passionate and that you do thoroughly enjoy the show as well as each other's company and the creative side of it. So that's very, very good to see. All right, let's go back to my page. There we go. So we're back to this. So like I said, the price points there are amazing. Admittedly, this is my personal disclaimer that one of these books, and Joseph, maybe you can help me with this, does require a little bit of work for a lot of the information in it.
Yes. T is, which by the way, I want to mention this because it's so stunning looking at this here. The two images of me and a lot of the promo images that we have on the site were created by this wonderful friend of ours, Scott Bilby, who is just the most amazing wizard with a camera you could ever hope for. And then after it's over, making us look good beyond the initial photograph and adding spirit children and things like that. But just as striking is the cover image for T, and that was also created by Tiffany Allen. And you talk about people that bring other skills to the table. She's been our graphic designer and layout expert on all these books. And yeah, I'm delighted with how they look. But T, to answer your point, you do have to collect a little bit of advanced information in magic circles. We call it pre-show. And it's one of those things in mentalism that just a little bit of extra knowledge gained in some cool and interesting way can carry you so far beyond the parameters of just a stage show and make it so much more personal. But there are ways to do it and there are ways not to do it. And trust me, I've done all of that. But
and
through trial.
When we say pre-show, it's as simple as shaking somebody's hand and welcoming them to the show. Essentially,
Yes.
You can get whatever you need.
Loads of information if you know what you're doing.
Yes.
And the problem is in mentalism, there are so many books that are like, and this information you obtain in pre-show. Yeah. But sometimes there's not even a good definition of pre-show, much less like a script on how you would approach it, or how do you approach a group, and how do you know who to select? And that was one of the big goals in finally publishing T, because it took me a long time to share that with the magic community, because when it's your closing effect, that's mine, and but I'm so glad I did, because even the people that would never do it the way I approach it, I've gotten tons of mail going, I'm so glad somebody finally covered how to do this, because it talks about how you select the right person, how you separate them from the group without anything being suspicious, how you make them comfortable, how you justify what you're doing, and a complete script for doing it. If you want to just plug yourself into the script and say my words, it'll work.
Right.
And that I think is some of the value that you will only see if you actually try something that involves pre-show.
Yeah, and a lot of pre-show work, people recognize it is just blatantly obvious that it's just there to get information. With this routine, it's so personal that it's important that you talk to the person pre-show to say, hey, this is what I'd like to do. Are you comfortable coming up on stage for this? Because if you don't do that, this will fail, like 100% fail. And I think that is the perfect camouflage for getting that information. So if you don't want to get this because of that pre-show, like, don't let that stop you at all. Like, this is far beyond, worth double what that book price is. And, the work it takes to be able to pull it off. So
thank you very much. I love it, and we've had so many experiences with how this happens, because it's essentially turning a very important chunk of my show over to someone else at the very last moments of the show. Yeah. And you have to have faith in what you're doing, and you do have to build a camaraderie with the person that you're performing, not just with, but for, because it's still a performance for that person. They're not in on it.
Yeah.
And I had one woman, and all the information was obtained strictly through her, and she turned around. While I'm on stage, she turned on her husband and went, "What have you told him?" And she's shaking her finger and accusing him right there in the middle of the show. And he's like, "I've never spoken to this man. Oh, well, I mean, I told him I wanted Pinot Grigio, but I've never said enough, And he was as shocked as anyone else. And then the debate continued after the show was over, because once he established, no, I've not told him anything. I think, if anything, it had a greater impact not only on the whole audience, but especially on her. Yeah. Because she had no idea that she was the conspirator. So,
yeah. Yeah, no, every bit of information on all these books, it's very well thought out. Like I said, the value of it is beyond double what the price point is on these books, and not because you get a simple method, but you get an entire routine from start to finish, and that's something that a lot of people don't provide in a lot of their lecture notes and routines and stuff like that. So you will definitely perform something in these books, I guarantee it. So. Well worth the value. So, okay, well, we are rolling up on the 2-hour mark.
Oh, wow.
We still actually have people watching. We have people commenting. 2 comments I'd like to share. The first one is from Scott Klinger right there. I did not know this. Christopher Hart was a guest at Abercorndabra in the early years.
Oh, I'm not surprised. Steve knows.
Yeah.
Steve knows good talent. The only talent he ever took a real risk on was us.
Well, again, he found the right one. So, and then the other one here, Brian, which is actually a previous winner from the Eric Jones contest, says, yes, one of the best shows I've seen, referring to the one at Abercorndabra. So,
Thank you.
Absolutely.
He may have been referring to Christopher Hart's show and not ours. But regardless, I agree. I agree with you if you were talking about Christopher Hart, and I'm very flattered if you were talking about us. Thank you, Brian, for everything.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Well, I think there's a reason why I invited you on here and why so many people have chimed in too. You've definitely built a fan base. People have found interest and passion in what you guys do. So thank you so much for putting your work out there and putting it out in front of people. I know it's not always easy, but you've definitely chased your passion, and it shows that you are passionate about what you do. So thank you guys so much for sharing tonight. It's been a lot of fun. And, I wish you the best, and hopefully we get you up here in South Dakota, or at least somewhere in the Midwest again very soon.
Absolutely.
We'd love it.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for participating, and make sure to hit us up on Facebook or Instagram if you're on that. And don't forget, this Saturday, Abercorndabra, the live 1-hour convention. Yes. We're be one of the dealers there, so make sure to look out for our commercial, and also the Spellbound commercial that's coming up as well.
Yeah, I got one on there too. So with that said, again, don't forget about the contest. I'll be posting a separate post about that to remind everybody and get that going. I'll be posting this and tagging it, pinning it to the top of the page so everybody can go back and watch it, and I will continue to follow up on questions, and if you guys direct them to those guys as well, I will do my best to direct them to them as well. So, cool. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for your generous gift and your time and everything you've given to us. And I will talk to you guys soon.
All right. Thank you. And Matthew, yes, you're absolutely correct. Thank you guys.
Take care.
Bye. All right. See you guys.
Bye-bye.